The stars were unusually bright the night Commander Aaron Hale returned to the outer research station of Epsilon Gate. He had traveled across half the galaxy for diplomatic work, but something about this place always felt different. To him, Epsilon Gate was more than a station. It was a memory, quiet, distant, but strangely warm. He did not know why this feeling always returned. He could not explain it. Yet every time he stepped on this station, something inside him felt like it was waiting for someone. He walked through the long, transparent corridor overlooking the nebula fields. Tiny particles of light drifted in space, like slow-moving fireflies. Aaron paused for a moment, letting the soft glow cover his thoughts. He had no idea that someone else on the station had already sensed his arrival. Someone who had been waiting for him for years, someone whose life had changed because of him. In the medical habitat on the far side of the station, an alien girl named Lorene sat in her floating wheelchair pod, looking at the holographic display that alerted her whenever new visitors arrived. Her pale blue skin reflected faintly in the screen as she read one name over and over: Aaron Hale. Her heartbeats, small and delicate, quickened. She softly touched the glass with trembling fingers. She remembered that name with an emotion so deep that even she could not describe it. Lorene was not like most members of her species. She had been born with limited movement in her legs and arms, and her body required a special support pod to move around. Many of her people saw her as weak, fragile, and incapable of contributing to the world around her. But Lorene had something that none of them understood, an inner strength shaped long ago by an encounter she never forgot. Years earlier, when she was still young, a disaster on their home moon had left her trapped under debris during a cultural exchange mission. Many aliens had passed by in panic, unable to help her. But one human, only one, had stopped. He had lifted the metal beam with all his strength, reassured her gently, and stayed with her until rescue arrived. Lorene never forgot his voice, his kindness, or the way he looked at her as if she was not weak at all. The memory became a guiding light in her life. She never knew his name then. She never expected to meet him again. But now, as she read the name on the screen, she knew. It was him. She whispered to herself, "He has come back. After so long." Lorene's caretaker, an elderly alien healer named Saroma, noticed the sudden excitement in the girl's eyes. Saroma floated closer and looked at the display. "So, the human commander you spoke of is finally here? You are certain this is the same one?" Lorene nodded, her soft silver eyes shining. "I know it. I can feel it." Saroma smiled kindly. "Then perhaps it is time you speak to him." Lorene hesitated. A small fear rose in her chest. What if he did not remember her? What if she had held on to a memory that meant nothing to him? What if she was wrong about everything? But Saroma placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, steadying her thoughts. "Do not fear, little star. You have waited many years. Sometimes destiny is quiet, but it always finds its way back." Back in the main station hall, Aaron continued walking, unaware of the eyes watching him through the monitors. He greeted a few officers, checked in with the station commander, and reviewed the purpose of his visit. It was supposed to be a simple diplomatic tour, to improve relations with different species stationed here. But something felt different this time. There was a pull, a soft tug in the back of his mind, like a forgotten promise trying to rise to the surface. He brushed the feeling off, assuming it was simple exhaustion from space travel. Still, as he stepped into the central garden dome, he paused. The dome was peaceful. Artificial lights created a soft, day-like glow, and floating plants from different planets drifted slowly through the air. Humans and aliens alike often came here to relax. Aaron always found it calming, yet today, he sensed something else, a gentle presence, a memory almost forming. He turned when he heard a faint hum. Lyrene entered the dome, her floating pod gliding softly. She stayed near the entrance for a moment, gathering courage. Saroma nodded to her from behind, then quietly stepped away to give her privacy. Aaron noticed the movement and looked toward the doorway. His eyes met Lyrene's, silver, glowing slightly, filled with emotion he did not understand. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Aaron felt something shift inside him, like a locked door opening halfway. The girl looked familiar. But from where? His mind searched for the missing connection, but the memory was blurry, hidden behind years of duty and travel. Lyrene took a breath. Her voice trembled softly, but carried a gentle strength. "Commander Aaron Hale, do you remember me?" Aaron blinked. The question hit him unexpectedly. He looked at her more closely, studying her face. There was something in her eyes, something he had seen once before, long ago during a moment of fear and hope. Lyrene guided her pod forward, slowly closing the distance between them. "I am Lyrene, the disabled girl you once helped on our moon. You saved my life when no one else could. You held the beam that trapped me. You waited with me. You made me feel like I mattered." Aaron's breath caught in his chest. The memory surged back, clear as starlight. He remembered the collapsed structure, the young alien girl trapped and terrified, her silver eyes shining with fear. He remembered promising her that she would not be left alone. And he remembered the feeling afterward, an unexplainable warmth he carried silently for years. "It was you," Aaron whispered, almost stunned. "I never knew your name. I always wondered what happened to you." Lyrene smiled, her voice gentle. "I survived. Because of you. And I never forgot." There was no dramatic music, no bright flash, just a quiet moment filled with meaning. The station's garden around them seemed to soften, as if listening. Aaron stepped closer, his voice low and sincere. "I'm glad you're alive. I'm glad I could help. But I never expected to see you again." Lyrene lowered her eyes for a moment, her voice trembling. "I always hoped I would. I wanted to thank you. Properly. I wanted you to know that your kindness changed my life." Aaron felt something warm fill his chest. He had saved many people. But somehow this moment felt different. Like a chapter of his life he didn't know was unfinished had finally reopened. Lyrene continued, her words soft but filled with emotion. "I spent years thinking of the day I might see you again. I wondered what I would say. But now that you're here, I'm just happy you remembered me." Aaron gently nodded, his voice steady. "Of course I remember. How could I forget something like that?" For Lyrene, those words were enough to make her heart glow. And for Aaron, this meeting felt like the beginning of something he could not yet understand, something deeper than duty, deeper than memory, and perhaps deeper than the distance between their worlds. The stars outside the dome shimmered softly, as if watching silently. And the story that destiny began years ago had quietly begun again. Aaron and Lyrene stayed in the quiet garden dome for a long moment, both trying to understand the unexpected reunion that fate had placed before them. The floating plants drifted gently around them, while soft lights created a peaceful atmosphere. It felt as if the station was giving them space, time to speak freely without interruption. Lyrene looked down at her hands, which rested lightly on the glowing controls of her mobility pod. She always felt self-conscious when meeting new people, worried that they would stare at her disability or treat her with hidden pity. But Aaron's eyes held none of that. He looked at her the same way he had all those years ago, steady, kind, and without judgment. Aaron broke the silence first. "I'm glad you came here to find me. I didn't know you were on this station." Lyrene nodded softly. I arrived 2 years ago for long-term treatment. Saroma, my caretaker, believes the medical center here is the best place for me. I never expected you to come here during your missions. Aaron smiled gently. Life is full of strange paths. She looked up, her silver eyes warm. Yes, and sometimes those paths cross again. The moment felt delicate, almost fragile, like a soft thread connecting two distant stars. Aaron sensed the emotions behind her words, but he also felt curious. Why had she remembered him so strongly? What had their brief meeting meant to her? He wanted to understand. So he asked, carefully, Lorene, why did that moment stay with you for so long? She breathed slowly, searching for simple words to explain something deeply personal. Because you were the first person who saw me as capable. Even when I was injured, scared, and trapped, you treated me like I mattered, like I was someone worth saving. In my world, people often look at me and see only weakness, but you did not. Aaron felt humbled. He had never thought of his actions as something special. He had simply done what anyone should do in a dangerous situation, help someone who needed it. But to Lorene, it had meant far more. She continued, her voice quiet but steady. After that day, I promised myself something. I promised that I would not give up on my life even when things were hard. I wanted to prove, mostly to myself, that I could still do things, even in my own way. And when days were difficult, I remembered your words. You told me I was brave. Aaron remembered saying those words clearly now. He had held her hand to calm her, telling her she was strong for enduring the pain. He had not expected those simple words to echo in her life for years. He stepped closer, not wanting to overwhelm her, but wanting her to know he truly cared. Lorene, I'm honored. I never knew that moment meant so much to you. She smiled softly, her voice gentle. It gave me hope when I needed it the most. They walked. Well, Aaron walked. Lorene floated, slowly around the dome. Other visitors passed by, but none disturbed them. The gentle hum of the station, the faint glow of the distant nebula outside, and the soft movements of drifting plants created a peaceful setting. It felt like the universe itself was listening to their conversation. Aaron asked, How long have you lived with Saroma? Since childhood, she replied. My condition made it difficult for me to travel or study like others. Saroma took care of me, supported my medical needs, and encouraged me to learn in whatever way I could. She is like family to me. Aaron nodded. She seems like a wise person. She is. And she has always believed that I have a purpose, even when I doubted myself. Aaron paused, looking thoughtful. And what do you believe now? Lorene hesitated at the question. Her soft gaze moved around the garden as if searching for an answer in the drifting lights. I believe that maybe meeting you again is part of that purpose. Aaron felt a gentle warmth in his chest. He didn't fully understand yet, but he felt something similar. A quiet sense that their reunion wasn't random. They stopped near a floating platform where different glowing seeds hovered like tiny stars. Lorene lifted a hand, and the pod gently raised her so she could touch them. When her fingers brushed the air, the seeds glowed even brighter, responding to her presence. Aaron watched, a bit amazed. They react to you? Yes, she said with a small smile. My species carries a natural energy field that some plants respond to. Even though my body is weak, my energy is strong. That's incredible, Aaron said sincerely. Lorene's smile widened. Most people say it is a small ability, but it reminds me that even in weakness there is beauty. Aaron admired how she spoke. Calm, gentle, yet filled with inner strength. The disability that held her body still had never held her spirit down. Instead, she had found ways to shine in her own way. After a few minutes, Saroma returned quietly, giving Lorene a warm look. "My child, you should rest soon. Your therapy session ended only an hour ago." Lorene nodded respectfully. "Yes, Saroma." But before leaving, she looked at Aaron again, her voice soft. "Will you be on the station long?" 3 weeks, Aaron replied. "I have meetings, inspections, and diplomacy work." Lorene's eyes brightened, almost glowing. 3 weeks, Aaron smiled. "I hope we can talk again. There's a lot I'd like to know about your life now." Lorene felt her heart flutter softly. "I would like that very much." Saroma guided her toward the exit, and Lorene's pod followed slowly. She kept looking back at Aaron until the doorway hid her from view. Aaron watched her leave, feeling something inside him settle into place, a quiet understanding that their paths were not crossing by chance. Later that evening, Aaron stood alone inside his assigned quarters. The room was simple, clean, and functional, like most human military spaces. The soft hum of the life support system filled the quiet, but Aaron's mind was far from calm. He kept thinking about Lorene, the way she spoke, the way she looked at him, the way she remembered a single moment from long ago. He wondered how many quiet struggles she had faced, how many days she had fought through without complaint, and he felt a deep respect for her resilience. Sitting on the edge of his bed, he whispered to himself, "She's grown into someone remarkable." His console beeped gently, showing his schedule for tomorrow. But Aaron barely noticed. His thoughts kept drifting back to her silver eyes and her soft smile. Across the station, Lorene lay in her resting chamber while Saroma checked the readings on her pod. Lorene looked peaceful, but her mind was busy. She replayed every second of their meeting. She had feared he would not remember her, but he had. He truly had. Saroma noticed the soft glow in Lorene's eyes. "You are happy?" Lorene nodded. "More than I expected." Saroma smiled kindly. "Then let your heart rest tonight. Tomorrow will bring new moments." Lorene closed her eyes, letting the gentle hum of her pod soothe her. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "I hope he will still want to see me." Saroma stroked Lorene's hair. "Child, the way he looked at you, I think he feels something special already." Lorene's cheeks warmed. She was not used to such ideas, not used to thinking anyone would see past her limitations. Yet Aaron had always seen her differently. Even now, years later, he looked at her without any trace of pity. She thought softly, "Maybe he sees my soul." The two slept on opposite sides of the station, unaware of how similarly their hearts echoed that night. A quiet connection had formed, gentle but real, waiting to grow. And somewhere in the peaceful silence of Epsilon Gate, a new chapter of their story quietly began to expand, slowly, softly, like a star preparing to shine. The next morning on Epsilon Gate began with a soft, golden light spreading across the station's artificial sky. It was the kind of morning that felt calm and slow, almost like the universe itself wished everyone to start the day gently. Commander Aaron Hale woke up earlier than usual, though he wasn't quite sure why. Perhaps it was excitement, or perhaps it was a quiet pull inside him. But he felt a certain energy that made him rise before his alarm even rang. He prepared for his day, putting on his uniform and reviewing his diplomatic schedule. There were meetings with station leaders, a tour of the new research wing, and a conference in the evening. It was a full day, yet his thoughts kept drifting to Lorene. He tried to focus on his duties, but every time he looked at the time, he wondered whether she would be awake now, whether she also thought about their meeting last night. Eventually, he sighed and smiled to himself. "I should at least check on her," he muttered. Meanwhile, Lorene was already awake, sitting beside a wide window that looked out into the star fields. Her pod was in rest mode, floating softly beside her as she sat in her special support seat. Saroma adjusted the healing lights around her. checking her posture and breathing patterns carefully. "You slept well?" Saroma observed. Lyrene nodded. "Yes, I slept peacefully, maybe for the first time in weeks." Saroma smiled knowingly. "Meeting someone from your past has filled your heart with joy." Lyrene lowered her eyes shyly. "It was just nice. I felt seen, heard, not as a patient or someone who needs help, but as myself." Saroma gently placed a hand on Lyrene's shoulder. "You deserve to be seen, and I believe Commander Arin understands that." Lyrene took a slow breath. "Do you think he will want to see me again today?" "I think he is thinking about the same thing you are thinking," Saroma replied warmly. "Give him time. If destiny brings people together once, it often brings them together again." Lyrene smiled softly. A short while later, the door to the medical center slid open, and Arin stepped inside. His eyes searched the room immediately, and when he saw Lyrene near the window, his expression softened. Lyrene's eyes widened slightly in surprise, and she straightened unconsciously. Saroma stepped back politely. "I will give you both some space." When she left, Arin approached Lyrene. "Good morning," he said with a warm smile. "Good morning," Lyrene replied, her voice gentle but happy. Arin looked around the peaceful space. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "You're not," Lyrene said quickly. "I'm just doing my morning treatment. It's almost finished." He nodded. "I wanted to check how you were feeling." Lyrene's silver eyes shone softly. "Better than usual. Thank you." Arin hesitated a moment before asking, "Would you like to take a walk or a glide around the station with me later, if your health allows it?" Lyrene felt a flutter inside her chest, but she nodded. "I would like that. Very much." Arin smiled, relieved. "Perfect. I have a few meetings this morning, but I'll return around midday." "I'll be here," she said softly. Arin left the medical center feeling strangely lighter, as if something warm had settled in his chest. Lyrene watched him go, her heart bright with quiet excitement. When midday arrived, Arin returned, and Lyrene's pod floated beside him as they moved through the corridors. They passed through different sections of the station: research labs, cultural halls, and observation decks. Each place had its own unique charm, but Lyrene's favorite was the Starview Tunnel, a long, transparent corridor that zigzagged through the outer edge of the station. Arin noticed the sense of wonder in her eyes as they entered. "You like this place?" Lyrene nodded. "I have visited it many times, but today it feels different." Arin walked beside her pod as they moved slowly through the tunnel. Space stretched out around them, filled with colorful clouds of cosmic dust. It felt like they were walking inside the heart of a rainbow made of stars. Lyrene whispered, "When I was younger, I used to dream about traveling freely through space. But because of my condition, I couldn't join the explorer programs. I had to stay on my home world most of the time." Arin looked at her gently. "I'm sorry." She shook her head lightly. "Don't be. I learned to dream in other ways. Looking at the stars, imagining their stories. It gave me hope." Arin felt admiration growing in him, not only for her strength, but for the quiet wisdom she carried. Lyrene continued, "Sometimes I wondered if the stars kept memories, if they remembered the people who looked at them with wonder." Arin smiled. "Maybe they do, and maybe they're happy you're here." Lyrene blushed faintly. "You say things in such a kind way." "I only say what I mean," Arin replied. They continued walking until they reached a small rest area overlooking a glowing nebula. Arin sat on a bench, and Lyrene's pod gently lowered beside him. The two stayed silent for a moment, watching swirling colors dance across the void. Lyrene spoke first. "There is something I want to tell you." Arin turned to her, giving full attention. "I'm listening." She took a gentle breath. Before yesterday, I often felt alone, not physically. Saroma takes good care of me, but in my heart, I wondered if I mattered to anyone outside my world, if anyone remembered me at all. Aaron's expression softened with concern. Lyrene, but when I saw your name, when I saw you again, it felt like a small light turned on inside me, she continued, as if the universe wanted to remind me that even brief kindness can last a lifetime. Aaron felt something stir inside him, something deep and warm. Lyrene, you matter. You always did. Even if I didn't know your name back then, I never forgot the courage I saw in you. Lyrene's eyes glimmered. Courage? From me? Yes, he said firmly. You were frightened and injured, but you still spoke gently. You trusted a stranger in the middle of chaos. You held on to hope. That was courage. Lyrene looked down at her hands, touched by his sincere words. Thank you, Aaron. You have no idea how much that means to me. Aaron hesitated before asking quietly, Would you mind if I asked more about your life? Not as a patient or someone who needs help, but simply as Lyrene? Lyrene's heart warmed. I would love that. She told him about her home world, how the trees sang in the wind, how children played in floating gardens, and how she used to watch the sky for hours, dreaming of distant worlds. She spoke about her challenges, too, but in a calm, honest way. She didn't hide the difficulties she faced, nor did she exaggerate them. She simply shared her truth. Aaron listened with genuine interest, asking gentle questions, never interrupting. And Lyrene felt something rare. She felt understood. After a while, Aaron shared parts of his life, his early training, his missions across different star systems, and the responsibilities that often weighed heavily on his shoulders. He revealed how difficult it was to maintain friendships when constantly traveling. Lyrene listened quietly, offering soft encouragement. I think you're lonely too, she said gently. Aaron blinked, surprised. How did you know? Lyrene smiled sadly. Loneliness recognizes loneliness. Aaron had no answer at first, but he realized she was right. Even surrounded by crew and officers, he often felt alone. But not now. Not beside her. They stayed in the Starview tunnel for over an hour, talking, sharing, and letting silence speak for them when needed. When it was time to take Lyrene back for her evening treatment, neither wanted the moment to end. As they approached the medical center, Lyrene turned to him. Aaron, thank you for spending the day with me. He shook his head softly. Thank you for sharing your world with me. Lyrene hesitated before speaking in a warm whisper. Will you come again tomorrow? Aaron smiled, a real heartfelt smile. I will. I promise. Her pod floated inside the medical center, and she looked back at him until the door closed. Aaron remained standing there for a few seconds, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a very long time. Both returned to their quarters with hearts quietly glowing, unaware that their growing bond was gently weaving a future neither had expected, but both were beginning to hope for. The next few days passed gently, almost like a soft melody moving through the station. Every day, Aaron made time to visit Lyrene, no matter how busy his schedule became. Sometimes they explored different parts of Epsilon Gate. Sometimes they simply sat in quiet places and talked. Their bond grew naturally, without force, without hurry, just two souls finding comfort in each other's presence. Everyone on the station began to notice, especially Saroma. She watched Lyrene's mood transform day by day. The girl who once stayed silent for hours now spoke with a warm glow in her eyes. Her laughter, light and soft, echoed in the hallways. Saroma felt grateful, knowing that Lyrene finally had someone who saw the fullness of her spirit. One morning, Lyrene waited in the garden dome with an excited heart. She had woken early and asked Saroma to help her get ready sooner. She wanted to meet Aaron at the first moment of the day, hoping he would appear just as the artificial sun began to rise inside the dome. Aaron arrived not long after, walking quickly but with a smile already forming when he saw her. "Good morning, Lyrene." "Good morning," she replied, her silver eyes shining warmly. Aaron noticed something different. "You seem extra happy today." Lyrene nodded shyly. "I wanted to show you something. A part of the station many people ignore." Aaron stepped closer with interest. "Lead the way." Lyrene's pod glided ahead, guiding him through a side corridor that curved upward. The pathway was quieter than the usual routes, with soft lights placed far apart, creating gentle shadows that danced along the walls. Eventually, they reached a doorway made of transparent crystal panels. Lyrene motioned him forward. "Push the panel lightly." Aaron did, and the door slid open soundlessly. Inside was a place he had never seen before, a small observatory garden hidden high above the main dome. The ceiling was entirely transparent, revealing a breathtaking view of the sky outside. A thin layer of protective energy shimmered faintly, keeping the air inside while letting the stars shine with full clarity. Glowing plants grew in small clusters around the room, giving off gentle colors. Pinks, soft blues, and pale greens. The space felt untouched, private, almost magical. Aaron whispered, "I didn't know this place existed." Lyrene floated inside and turned to him with a quiet smile. "Most people don't. I found it during one of my therapy walks. I come here when I need peace." Aaron stepped beside her. "It's beautiful." "It is," Lyrene said softly. "But it feels even more beautiful today." They sat together in the observatory garden, Aaron on a curved stone seat, Lyrene in her floating pod. Outside the transparent ceiling, a slow comet passed by, trailing a faint silver glow across space. The sight made Lyrene's eyes widen in wonder. "Look," she whispered. Aaron watched the reflection of the comet dance across her face. She wasn't simply observing the beauty of the stars, she was shining with it. There was something incredibly gentle and inspiring in the way she admired the universe. "Lyrene," Aaron said softly, "I have something I want to ask you." She turned toward him, curious. "What is it?" He hesitated for a heartbeat, unsure how to phrase it in a way that felt honest, yet simple. But Lyrene waited, her expression patient and open. "I want to understand what you feel," he began carefully. "About us." Lyrene's breath caught softly. She had hoped for this question, but feared it as well. She lowered her gaze briefly, gathering her emotions. Finally, she spoke in a small but steady voice. "I feel safe with you. When I am with you, I forget my limits. I feel seen, understood, and happy. I do not know what our connection means yet, but I know it is important." Aaron nodded slowly, touched by her sincerity. "I feel the same way. Being around you makes me feel calm, and alive in a way I haven't felt in a long time. I keep wondering why fate brought us together again, after so many years." Lyrene looked up, her silver eyes gentle. "Maybe because we were meant to give each other something, hope, strength, or maybe simply kindness." Aaron smiled warmly. "Whatever it is, I'm grateful for it." They stayed in the observatory garden for hours, speaking softly about dreams, about the future, about the unknowable mysteries of the universe. Lyrene shared her desire to someday travel to other worlds. Even if her body could not move freely, she wished to see new colors, new skies, new cultures. "I want to collect memories," she said softly, "ones that belong only to me." Aaron nodded thoughtfully. "And I want to help make that happen if I can." Lorene blinked in surprise. You would travel with me? If your health allows it, and if you wish for me to be there, Aaron replied gently. Then yes. Her heart fluttered with a warmth she could not describe. I would like that. When they finally left the observatory garden, Lorene felt a quiet joy she had never felt before, one that filled her like a soft, glowing light. Aaron walked beside her, feeling the same gentle pull in his heart, as if each moment deepened the connection between them. Later that evening, Aaron returned to his quarters. He sat at his desk but didn't touch his work. Instead, he stared at the small hollow photo of Lorene he had taken earlier that day in the garden, a picture of her smiling at a floating flower that glowed near her hand. He whispered to himself, "She has changed something in me." Meanwhile, Lorene lay in her resting chamber, her heart full. Saroma entered the room and looked at her with a warm, knowing expression. "You seem peaceful tonight," Saroma said. Lorene nodded softly. "Today felt special." Saroma smiled. "It is good to see your spirit shining again." Lorene hesitated before asking, "Saroma, do you think someone like me deserves this kind of happiness? This kind of connection?" Saroma's eyes softened deeply. "My child, happiness is not earned by ability, it is earned by the heart, and your heart has always been bright." Lorene closed her eyes, comforted by the words. "He makes me feel like I can be more than my limits." "Then he is worth holding on to," Saroma whispered. Outside the station windows, stars shimmered quietly, as if listening to their gentle conversation. The next morning, Aaron and Lorene met again, ready to explore another section of the station. But something unexpected happened. As they turned a corner near the council hall, Aaron's communication device buzzed urgently. He checked the message, and Lorene noticed his expression change slightly. "Is something wrong?" she asked. Aaron took a slow breath. "I've just received new orders. I may have to leave the station soon." Lorene felt her heart drop, but she kept her voice steady. "How soon?" "In 2 days," he said softly. "A diplomatic mission needs me on a nearby system." Lorene's gaze lowered, but she nodded. "I understand. You have your duty." Aaron moved closer, his voice gentle. "Lorene, I don't want to leave you behind, but I have no choice." She looked up with a quiet smile. "I know. And it's okay. I'm happy I got these days with you." He hesitated before saying, "It doesn't have to end here." Lorene's breath caught. "What do you mean?" Aaron knelt slightly so he was at her level and spoke with soft sincerity. "I want to come back for you. I want to stay in your life, not just for a few days, if you'll let me." Lorene felt her heart swell with warmth. Tears glimmered lightly at the edges of her eyes, though they did not fall. "I would like that more than anything," she whispered. Aaron smiled, a gentle, heartfelt smile. "Then it's a promise. I will return. And when I do, we'll continue this journey together, wherever it leads." Lorene nodded, her voice trembling with happiness. "I will wait for you, Aaron." And as they stood together under the quiet shimmer of the station lights, both felt the same truth. Their story was only just beginning.